There's the saying that time is our greatest resource. My feeling is that it's not time. It's that if time is one of the factors, yes, but it's focused curiosity, I think, is the most important thing. Now, untreated ADHD me would have unfocused curiosity and I'd want to know everything and then go off on tangents and all sorts of stuff. But being able to focus and compartmentalize, turn that curiosity into a laser, that's where I found I've been able to achieve a lot of growth.
Welcome to the Focus and Chill podcast, where we discuss unconventional productivity tactics designed for neurospicy people. I interview neurodivergent guests who've figured out secrets for getting a ton of amazing work done without burning out. I'm your host, Jeremy Nagel. I'm an ADHD software developer turned startup founder and PhD candidate. I built FocusBear to help with my own productivity and burnout challenges. Welcome to episode number 128 of the Focus and Chill podcast. I'm thrilled to be joined by Sridhar Dhanapalan today. Sridhar is an Enterprise Agile Coach at IBM Consulting, currently leading a transformative Agile journey at Asahi Beverages. With a dynamic career spanning startups, enterprise education, and not-for-profits, Sridhar has served as Director of Linux Australia and CTO at One Laptop Per Child. A first principles thinker, he's passionate about unlocking human potential, believing tech is merely a tool. People are what matter. Trained as a mindset coach, he brings a thinking-first approach to everything, from coaching teams to parenting his two neurodivergent children, inspiring growth beyond boundaries with deep insight and empathy. Welcome to the show, Sridhar.
Thanks for having me, Jeremy.
Yeah, no, really good to talk. We've had a few conversations off record and thought it would be fantastic to have you on the podcast. Keen to begin with your journey of being diagnosed, because I believe it was relatively recently and some challenges before that.
Indeed. So it's been just under 12 months since I was diagnosed with autism, and then maybe about 10 months since I had an ADHD diagnosis. So it's new for me, but one thing I try to embrace and be very conscious of is growth. And I also saw it as an opportunity. I'm a curious person and I'm a big believer in the power of curiosity. Given enough curiosity, we can solve anything.
Absolutely. Looking back at it, do you think there were signs earlier back when you were a child or when you were a bit older?
Oh, yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's one of those things that in hindsight, after discovering, I'm sure this happens to many neurodivergent people, when they start to explore the area, then they think back and they go, oh, okay, this happened and that happened, all that. And yes, my world really, really opened up. Another thing that I've been told is quite common is we start to question ourselves when we look at our children. That's certainly what happened to me. So my children are neurodivergent and I had many struggles through my life. I didn't know why. I just sort of accepted it. And then when I started looking at my children, for me, they're a huge source of inspiration, growth, energy, and curiosity. And even before knowing I was neurodivergent, I have grown and changed so much for them. So looking at them, I'm thinking, how can I support you better? Then I started seeing signs. And fortunately, I work at a company that is quite neurodiverse affirming. So there are chat groups, there's a community there. And through that exposure, I became open to it. I didn't really know what it was before I started in this job. And as I explored my kids, I started questioning myself. And then eventually went, oh, okay, I might be autistic. Did some screeners, did the ADHD screener. Nothing showed up at all. But no, not ADHD. Did the autism one. Went, okay, fine, I'm autistic. But I looked at the report. I'm like, well, somebody explains about half of it. And then I thought, okay, I'm going to take a punt and go for the ADHD one anyway, even though all the screeners said no. Turns out I'm ADHD too. So I'm an ADHDer. And yeah, I've just been growing a lot ever since. But another indicator to me was I'm a mindset coach and I love exploring how the brain works, what makes us tick, how can we connect with people better. And I realized that all the strategies, I was hitting a wall. I knew I had the right strategies. I knew I was doing the right thing. And I was still hitting a wall. And that was another thing that sort of prompted me to look deeper and go, there's something in me that's stopping me. So yeah, here I am. And after 12 months of being, just under 12 months of being neurodivergent, it's been a great journey. And I've
Mm.
found ways to support my children and be active in the neurodivergent community and help others. And that's something that I find exciting.
Yeah, really great to hear that. I'm curious about the ADHD screener. What do you think the difference was between doing that and the assessment? Were there things that were not asked correctly in the ADHD screener?
Yeah, really good question. And so I think it's called an ASRS
Mhm.
test, and they've narrowed it down to 6 questions now I think it's up to version 5. And the way I interpreted the questions and the way I think an average person would interpret the questions is a focus on physical hyperactivity. And I mean, I can see in hindsight that in some ways I am physically hyperactive, but the majority of it is mental. And as I've been reading, I do deep dives on things. And as I've been discovering, that's actually quite common with ADHDers. And so, yeah, the questions don't really pick that up. I look back
Mm.
now and I go, wow, I used to open a lot of web browser tabs. I would have hundreds open. And I've got a special extension in my browser to manage those hundreds and then thousands of tabs and all that stuff, right?
Mhm.
Um, and now I don't. But I look back on myself, I'm like, wow, I really was distracted, even though I didn't realize.
Mm.
Because you normalize these things. You just think, oh, that's just how it is. But
Mm.
once you've grown to, once you've had the opportunity to experience a different way of living, and once I've become self aware, then I have those realizations. And it also means I can proactively keep myself in check a lot better now. Not perfect, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
So fewer browser tabs. The last point, was it more around keeping your distractibility in check, or is it also about, I guess, emotional regulation and some of the other things that might be an issue?
Oh, it's all of the above. I mean,
Mm.
distractibility is a big one. And I'm a huge believer in focus. I mean, there's the saying that time is our greatest resource. My feeling is that it's not time. It's that if time is one of the factors, yes, but it's focused curiosity, I think, is the most important thing. Now, untreated ADHD me would have unfocused curiosity and I'd want to know everything and then go off on tangents and all sorts of stuff. But being able to focus and compartmentalize, turn that curiosity into a laser, that's where I found I've been able to achieve a lot of growth. And in the past 6 months, my life has just been so much better. I just feel so much more confident about my life. A lot of us get rejection sensitive dysphoria, and that comes from a lifetime of letting ourselves down and letting other people down around us. And I told myself as I started to go into treatment that all the goal I'm going to set for myself, so goal setting is important, realistic goals, smart goals. All I told myself was I'm just going to have this simple goal of of building my own confidence and proving to myself that I can sustainably deliver to my expectations and to others' expectations. I could before, but inconsistently. I do for a bit and then I fall apart. But this time round, I've been going for more than 6 months and it's been great. I feel like I can keep going.
That's a great, really good goal to have, and excellent to have been on the track for 6 months. The focus point is really interesting. I recorded an episode earlier today, and my guest was saying that for him, he's leaning into the natural tendency for his ADHD brain to go to multiple things. And he was talking about that potentially being a strength, that he'd be editing a presentation in Canva, reviewing a document, and checking emails, and just sliding between those three things. And I'm curious about your perspective on that in terms of the laser-like focus versus the divergent focus and doing many different things.
Oh, it depends. I think a superpower of mine is seeing patterns and seeing linkages between things that other people would consider to be completely separate. And that's how I innovate. I spent a lot of time working in startups, for instance, and nowadays I work in enterprise and I'm being entrepreneurial rather than entrepreneurial. So it is useful to be able to do that and see those links. At the same time, I think the focus is perhaps more important. Hyperfocus is something I've been noticing a lot more in myself, and that is again, it's a superpower, but it's also a kryptonite. So superpower in that I can I can really get into flow and do a lot in a short space of time. The kryptonite is if I don't put boundaries around it, time boundaries, for instance, I will keep going and going and going and burn myself out. I
Mm,
will not go to bed on time. That's probably that is my biggest problem at the moment. Still working on that one. I stay up too late, and then I get exhausted. Then I crash, and then the next day I don't want to get out of bed. So, yeah, I'll stop there. There's so much I could say.
yeah, I can relate to that. And it's like that with a lot of things that it can be positive to a certain extent. And then if it gets taken too far, then it becomes a problem.
Everything's good in balance.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, sorry, if I can say one last thing, because you mentioned, I think you mentioned emotional regulation, and that is something I like to zero in on. That is crucial. And for me, I got into mindset coaching because there was something in me. Firstly, I'm a natural first principles thinker. Secondly, I just wanted to understand humans. I guess how computers make sense. I got into technology, and people don't. And I think there was something in me that wanted to understand how people work. And so that's what got me to coaching. And a big thing I've learned is keeping yourself calm. Like I'm a big proponent of yoga, not just the physical yoga, but the meditating yoga. And I'm amazed at what these guys came up with thousands of years ago that are now being uncovered through the sciences of emotional intelligence. Your Daniel Goleman, and you've got the growth mindset, Carol Dweck, those sorts of people. They're really uncovering this stuff now. But I often come back to this Daniel Kahneman idea of thinking fast and slow. We've got that fast system one brain, that slow system two brain, that's where the critical thinking happens. The emotions happen in the system one brain. We are creatures just like all the other animals. We react to things. Our instincts are to be emotional first. So you need to calm that. You need to manage those emotions so that our critical thinking, that neocortex that developed much later, can function well. So, yeah, the yoga, the keeping yourself calm, taking deep breaths, all of that, so foundational.
Mm, absolutely. And also important at work. Can we talk about the type of work that you're doing now?
Yeah. So I've been able to find a role that engages my interest, my deep interest in tech, and my love of how the brain works, and that is agile coaching. And this is about helping organizations. I mean, it's like turning around an oil tanker in some ways. You're building new cultures, and this takes time. And it comes down getting to the thinking of what's going through people's heads. We think before we do, and group think is essentially culture. And how do we engage that? How do we tap into people's fundamental motivations? And that's where I use my mindset strategies. I'll be using your six core needs, or I'll be using uh, what's the one? The self-determination theory. Sorry, escaped my mind for a moment. And then that combined with the agile stuff and helping engaging people's core motivations to want to change, to be inspired to change, and get into that idea of thinking in iterations, less waterfall. It's so powerful. And it's been I got into this because I was self-motivated myself, because the RSD, perfectionism, procrastination, all of these things. And I realized if I think and act iteratively, it takes the sting out of those things. And I can go, oh yeah, that's just a draft. I've I just turned this over in a week. What do you think? I like your feedback. I used to be afraid of feedback. I still am sometimes, but it helps. And so those strategies I've learned for myself, I'm able to help others and extend and build upon those things and do so at scale. And that's the way the world is going. That's been identified in Andrew McAfee wrote that book, The Geek Way, where he deconstructed all the best companies in the world. How do they operate? And a big part of it is moving with speed, moving quickly, iterating. In NLP, we talk about behavioral flexibility. Again, for me as an autistic, that's been such a big learning to be flexible, not so rigid. And a lot of these things I worked on in myself unconsciously before I even knew I was autistic. And when I realized I was autistic, I went, oh, but move that far unconsciously. What can I do with volition? Knowing, uh, knowing that I have this and acting with self-awareness. And so I've been able to accelerate my life. And that's been fantastic. So I'm accelerating my life and my career at the same time and helping others. So I find that exciting.
Hmm. Yeah, it's a really important role and wonderful that you combine the, I guess, self-development and helping other people at the same time. And when you're not working, what do you get up to? Maybe when you're still in hyperfocus late at night, what sort of things have you been looking into?
Oh, a few things. So one, I mentioned my parenting before. I'm a very driven parent, and I try to innovate in everything I do. So one of them is parenting. So I've created my own curriculum for my kids. They go to school, they do that thing. And through my mindset coaching, I've realized there's so much that's missing in education. I've worked with some of the best minds in education especially when I was at One Laptop Per Child. And even then I realized there's stuff missing here. We're not using the brain to its full potential. And, we talk about wanting to be superhuman, but really being human is super. We haven't explored the human condition enough. So that's something I love learning about, doing those deep dives and working out how can I use this for myself? How can I use this with my kids? How can I use this in my career to help the world? I am a big believer in us understanding ourselves. And the more we can do that, and more we can do that on a societal level, the more we can move past the the problems that we've had in this world. We need to change the way we think to change the problems. I think it was Einstein that said you can't you can't do the same thing over and over and expect a different result. So we need to change the way we think to change the way the world is. The science is there, and we're recovering more and more. It just needs to be used better and needs to be disseminated. And ideally, with kids, we have this imprint period, our first 7 to 10 years of life, and that's when we learn the most. That's when the foundations of our thinking are laid. Let's get in then. That's what I've been doing with my kids, and it just works an absolute treat. So, yeah, that's my passion. I guess where it leads to tech is AI. I find AI extremely interesting. And AI started with, Jeffrey Hinton he came up with backpropagation and those sorts of things in the 80s. And he was trying to understand the brain by replicating it in a machine. And that became the genesis of what was modern AI. And yeah, there's just so much to explore there, that intersection between human and machine. What can we do to further ourselves, further society?
Mm. Yeah, it's going to be an exciting couple of years and a couple of decades ahead. It feels like there's exponential growth.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Let's move on to now how you optimize your productivity when you're at work.
Let's see. The first thing, so I take a thinking first perspective because we think before we do. So it's getting that mindset right. And probably the biggest thing is being purpose driven. So to borrow from Simon Sinek, starting with why. Whatever I do, I get clear on the why first. If I'm not clear on the why am I doing it? And that's one of the biggest things I use, one of the biggest concepts I use in my coaching at work as well, trying to get everyone to start with the why. We're in a society where we get taught about the what. It's like, it's all about implementation, do. We don't stop to think, okay, why are we doing this? And it does change everything. It gives you that lodestar and it means you can make intelligent decisions. You can keep checking in. you can maintain alignment. And I've got a universal strategy I use for maintaining alignment as well, from my topmost level of thinking, purpose, values, goals, all of that, all the way down to what I do. And I use that to strategize for everything. And then that in turn gives me focus. That in turn helps me compartmentalize. And it gives me a framework I can check in with myself. Am I doing the right thing? Am I doing this in the right order? Are my activities aligned, or are they all disparate and disjointed? Um, so yeah, for all the talk about tech, I work in tech, I work for a tech company. I could talk about tools and this and that. And, I do use those things, Kanban boards and so on. I do enjoy those. They're helpful, but really it's starting with the thinking. That's that's the most powerful thing. Everything else is an enabler.
Yeah. And what you were saying also reminds me of the Peter Drucker quote that nothing is more wasteful than doing the wrong thing efficiently, or with respect. And I guess that's
Absolutely.
important of the alignment of making sure that everything is congruent with goals. Okay, so there's that level of starting up here, of figuring out what is the most important thing to do, and that's really important. And then what are the other things once you've figured out the most important thing and you've aligned everything? Then is it the Kanban boards and other things like that?
Oh,
Consistently those things.
that would be a topic for a much longer conversation. But if I was to try and really summarize it very quickly, I use a method called the critical alignment model, which comes from a coaching methodology called metadynamics. And basically it's a 4-dimension model: environment, structure, implementation, and people in order. And so for me, when I'm doing something, I'm going, okay, start with that environment. That's the why, there's the purpose in there. Then what are my values? What are my beliefs, standards, expectations, goals, that sort of thing. So standards and expectations are boundaries, for instance. So I use this to filter everything. So I have a model, I have a critical alignment model for myself, and that defines who I am, who I want to be. And then within that, I'll have other models. It could be for something I'm doing, something I'm doing maybe for the kids, or it's something at work, all of my work strategies. They fit within that. They have to be aligned with who I am. That way it brings out the best in me. So there's that environment. The structure is my Kanban boards, could be shorter term goals, could be smaller strategies. It could be the criteria that I need to meet, KPIs, that sort of thing. Then the implementation is for doing. What exactly am I going to do? That is within that structure that's aligned with the environment. And then, and then the people is, what people do I have around me to support me? Is it a team? Do I have people I can call up when I have an issue? Really big lesson, something I keep reminding myself of, is always reach out when there's a problem, because you can't solve a problem with the thinking that created it in the first place. And for me, I think it's the autistic side, or at least it's the RSD, I naturally want to withdraw when there's a problem. And I've realized that is the worst thing I can do. I make it worse. So I have to remind myself, I've got a support network around me. I've got structures, I've got resources, all of these things. I can reach out for help. If I've got a problem, my thinking has created that problem. It's from that perspective. I need someone else's perspective to help me solve the problem. So yeah, that's my main strategy, and it's universal. I find I can use it for just about anything.
That's really helpful. I guess even in situations where it might feel like it's completely out of your control, you can still think about there are elements of every rung of that. Well, rung is probably the wrong term, but every level of that hierarchy there.
Yep.
That might be
Yeah, that's right.
shaped.
That's right. And as an autistic, I think I latched onto, oh, there's some structure here, I can make sense of this. And that was really helpful. Now, my ADHD side doesn't want to fulfill on the strategy. So that's something I have to keep myself disciplined about. Although now that I'm mindful of it and I'm untreated, it's a lot easier and it works. I can easily get it to flow.
One thing that can kill flow is instant messages and emails and phone calls. How do you deal with those type of interruptions and managing communication in that way?
Well, I liked how you flowed to that question. The do not disturb mode, focus mode, automating that sort of stuff on my phone and computer. It's not good enough on my computer yet, but on my phone, it's a lot better. I do like automating things. And so strength and a weakness. It's a weakness because I'll hyper focus and then spend time over automating stuff. That's a distraction. But when used well, it can be fantastic. I've got lots of home automation going on. I've got Home Assistant running on my network attached storage. And so I can set things in a way, well, have things set for me in a way automatically that I don't have to think about it. And little things make a big difference. Like, I always start the day doing yoga, for instance. That's particular yoga I do as soon as I wake up, and I don't want my phone distracting me. So when I start my yoga, it automatically switches to do not disturb and all of that stuff for that time. And then it turns it off when I'm done. That's the other thing, because I'll forget to turn it off and then I'll miss all my phone calls.
Mm.
So yeah, compartmentalization, really important. And again, checking in on my purpose, checking in on that alignment, that helps to keep that focus and it gives me the authority to myself to say no, gives me that willpower to say no. Because the question, as I've learned, is not, can I do this? Or should I answer that message? It's, is that the best thing to do? Given my alignment, is that the best thing to do? And when I'm aligned, it's so much easier to say no to 99% of things, because otherwise I'll make an excuse to say yes.
Does that then mean you have a stack of emails that you just ignore?
Yep. So I'll say this. There's a feature in Gmail which I don't know why it just goes unnoticed, unpublicized, and it's been there for years and years. And it's called Priority Inbox. I highly recommend it. Anyone who uses email, use Gmail, get Priority Inbox. I'm not selling Google, by the way, but a Priority Inbox is great because then you can train it to accept certain things just to go to that inbox, and then everything else is counted as other. And I barely even look at it. That helps to focus me when it comes to email. I am pretty bad at responding to emails, as I'm sure you've experienced, Jeremy. But
Love that.
part of that is the focus as well. Just trying to go, okay, I'm doing this, not doing those things.
Yeah. That is really helpful in terms of just figuring out which ones are actually worth replying to and at what time as well. And I like the snooze function as well. That was something new that they added quite recently, and it really helps because there'll be some things that I don't need to respond to during the week, for example, and I'll leave it until the weekend. That approach can help. Is there any productivity advice that doesn't work for you?
Oh, doesn't work for me. I suppose from an ADHD perspective, something I struggle with historically is just doing the thing. If the advice is just do it, I'm like, I've been trying to do it, but I keep getting distracted. It's just not happening. That was most of my life. And now I know what it is. And so it's not just doing it. And where that comes from is, I think in this society, we get taught to be implementation focused. So if I go back to the critical alignment model, because I always do, it's do. It's like, oh yeah, just do it. And I need to feel motivated. And there's a whole science, there's frameworks for motivations out there, and I tap into those. And the biggest one is being purpose driven, as I've said before. I will do something if the motivation is strong enough, and the motivation can be strong enough if it is aligned to my purpose. So that makes a big difference to me. Even as an ADHDer, if the motivation is strong enough, I will do it. And then with motivation, there's away from motivation and there's towards motivation. We as animals, and it's important to recognize we are animals. There's only 7
Mhm.
million years that we split off from chimpanzees evolutionarily. And our brain really hasn't changed that much in the last 3 million years. So we are animals and we're reactive by nature. We want to get away with using the least amount of energy. We will do things if we have to. And we're more driven by pain than we are by pleasure. So I find creating motivation is kind of a two-step process where it's okay, create some positive movement towards something, but also create that negative of if I stay here, if I choose to do nothing and take that low energy route, which my animalistic part wants to do, part of my brain wants to do, what's that going to cost me? And dial up that pain. So then I get the away from motivation, but it's not away from to anything random, which is what happens to most of us. It's
Mm.
away from towards something because I've defined what that towards is.
Mhm. Hmm. The light side and the dark side combined together.
That's right. Yeah.
And have you found a way to do that without, I guess, ultimately causing anxiety? Because I think that sometimes that happens for me, that I'm aware of the negative consequences and then it can consume me a little bit, that I get worried about. Or if I, for example, today I was thinking, gee, I'm feeling like I'm a bit behind with my PhD and I need to get my ethics application done. And I did do it and I felt good about doing it, but there was also part of me in the morning where maybe it felt a little bit unhealthy, on the verge of anxiety. Does that ever happen to you? And do you have thoughts?
Uh, yeah. Yeah. So when we talk about motivation, the ADHD brain has its own types of motivation.
Mm,
There's the standard ones, but they only work so far with ADHD. We are interest based, we're urgency based, and so oftentimes it takes a deadline to make us want to do something. I find being iterative. So I come back to what I do in agile coaching and what sort of got me towards this. Being iterative sort of takes out the sting. It takes out the perfectionism, the procrastination to a point. Breaking it down, and this is where tools like AI can be really good. Using it to strategize, create that sense of purpose, create that critical alignment model. In my case, I mean, I do it myself, but I've found AI can be a really helpful tool for this. And then, yeah, deconstructing that, getting it down to not just implementation, but getting it down into little chunks of
mm,
do this, then do this. Because with ADHD, we've got working memory issues. Working
mm,
memory is less functional. Executive function is less functional than your neurotypical people. And so we tend to bite off more than we can chew. We get excited and we go, oh, let's do all of this. And then the excitement fades and we go, oh, this is too much. Overwhelm. And then nothing happens. We avoid it. And then it gets to the deadline and then we're like, oh, okay, better do something. And I won't lie, I still do that. And so it's still something I'm working on, but I'm finding that these strategies make a big difference. So it's creating the towards motivation first, then
mm,
the away from. Because if you create the away from first, then all you want to do is run away.
mm,
And run away to where? Well, you haven't defined a destination yet. So then you're going all over the shop and you're running around with your hair on fire. And we don't want that. So yeah, I find it's about combining all those strategies
mm,
so that you're plotting that course. You go, I want to go here. And so define that, make that as clear as possible, then deconstruct that with a sense of purpose down to implementation, down to little steps. And then you go, okay, where I am now, dial up that pain. So you know where to go and you know it's just step, 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 and you'll get there.
mm. Yep, that makes complete sense. And you spoke about iterations, and the idea there would also be that there would be a break between iterations sometimes. So we're going to take a quick break and we'll be back with the next set. The Focus and Chill podcast is brought to you by Focus Bear, a focus enhancement app for ADHDers. Staying on top of tasks is easier than ever with Focus Bear's new To-Dos feature. Record a voice note describing what you need to do, and Focus Bear's AI will turn it into a structured set of subtasks and automatically prioritize it for you. You can also take a photo of the paper to-do list, and the AI will work its magic. I'd love for you to try it. You can jump onto focusbear.io or just Google Focus Bear and try it out. Let me know what you think. Right, we're back from our break, and I'm keen to hear about your morning routine. You do the yoga first thing? What happens after?
I do, yeah. So I've really got into yoga in the past year and a half. And I got interested years ago, and I had on and off practices. And yeah, finally found something that worked for me. And it sets my day up. It is so important. And I've realized what it's doing is there's a concept called creating space. You're creating space in your mind where your brain automatically if you do it well enough, your brain automatically starts drifting up to environment, and you start thinking automatically at that purpose and values level. I used to wonder, why is it that I get clarity of thought when I'm in the shower? Why is it that when I go on a long holiday, I think I end up thinking about things, my life incredibly differently? And this is what I realized. It's that. And so now I can do it more intentionally. So I start the day thinking an environment, and that way I can think at that purpose level and filter everything through that. I don't start my day with, oh, do. And then I finish the day going, oh, what did I do? Did I achieve anything? No. I used to do that all the time. Don't do that nearly as much. So that's been so important. I'm a big believer in rituals. Rituals are habits with a purpose. You do them enough and it engages that neuroplasticity. It creates those neural connections, those synapses. And then your brain is hardwired for those things. Old habits don't disappear. They're still there in your brain. The way to undo them is to create new habits that are strong enough to overpower the old ones. And then when the old ones pop up from time to time, you have to kind of go, self-compassion is really important. Just go, thank you, brain. I know that's your old habit. That's your old map, so to speak, but I'm going to do this. So my morning is about rituals, yoga, the standard things, brushing my teeth and stuff like that. I used to forget to brush my teeth, which sounds disgusting. Working from home, it's all right. But I've got no feelings, so my teeth are great. But still, yeah, it's just making sure those things are done. And I started off by having apps to remind me. And then eventually those connections in my brain got strong enough that I just do them automatically. And then I can focus on another ritual, another routine I want to make. But starting the day on a good note, thinking at environment level, so important. And then having those rituals to create space in your mind every now and then. And automatically I found if I feel stressed, nowadays I just stop, close my eyes, take a deep breath. Whereas before, I'd get overwhelmed. So yeah, big believer in rituals.
Wonderful. How about in the evening? Do you have similar rituals in the evening?
No, that's where I've failed so far. No, that's my current focus. And speaking of focus, so my biggest challenge, and I think I mentioned it before, was the hyperfocus. So, I'll get interested in something and I just do. And then I look at the time, I'm like, whoa, where did the time go? Or I forgot to eat dinner or something like that. That's something I'm getting better at, but I am a night owl and I'm a big believer in working to your energy levels, our ultradian rhythms and our chronotype. So my chronotype is night owl. So I accept that, but yeah, I need to get better with that screen off and all of those things. Yeah, that's my current focus.
Cool. What would your ideal be in terms of what time would you go to bed and what would you do in the lead up?
Well, see, it depends as well, because like when I work from home, and I am able to work from home most of the time, which is great because then I can work to my to my energy levels, I would want to go to bed at midnight and then wake up at 8. That's what I find I naturally do. Now, when I go to the office, I have to wake up earlier. There's the commute and all of that stuff. And so that throws a bit of a spanner in the works. And I have to consciously remind myself of, hey, I need to wake up earlier. Therefore, I need to do all that preparation for the next day, which I wouldn't have to do if I was working from home. Yeah, that's something I would like to do better. I had an idea for an app to kind of prompt me on my screen, on my computer screen, not my phone screen, because I'm not really looking at my phone. I'll be doing hyperfocus on my computer at night, going, hey, you need to wake up at this time. You need to do X, Y, Z. Those things are going to take these amounts of time. You need to do these things before you need to go to bed. You need to do these things before you wake up. I don't know. That's been my thought, and kind of automatically allow those times and then do the planning for me and tell me, like a backwards alarm clock,
Hmm.
you need to go to bed at this time in order, or you need to start your wind down at this time because you need to do these things, and these things will take this time. And you need to wake up at this time because you need to do these things. It's going to take this much time so that you can get out of the door at this time and go to work. I think something like that would be helpful for me.
Yeah, that makes sense. I like that idea. I'll have to think about how we could incorporate it into Focus Bear, because we have it in general, but it has a very rigid time at the moment where it would assume that you would always want to wake up at a given time. But you're talking about more of a dynamic depending on if you're going to the office versus working from home. I will
That's
ponder
right.
that one in
Yeah.
the shower. I also have my clarity of thought then. So wrapping up, where can people connect with you if they'd like to talk further?
Well, there's my email. Probably LinkedIn's easier because well, simply because of spelling my name. But for those of you who see the show notes, I'm sure my name is in there, and yeah, I'm sure.
We'll
Yeah,
put your LinkedIn
email's
as well.
okay. Maybe no spam it or something, so it doesn't get picked up by the bots. I'm not sure that's still a thing in these days of AI. But LinkedIn, my handle is Sridhar D. So linkedin.com/in/SRIDHARD. Yeah, and you can message me there, I suppose.
Great.
But yeah, always keen to talk and explore how we tick as a species, and yeah, make the world a better place.
Great. Do you have any final words or asks for the audience?
I suppose it's if I was to summarize what we've been talking about here, and there's so much I could say, but just a few things. Find ways to create space in yourself. Start the day with it. Do it through the day. Be curious. Focus your curiosity, especially about yourself. Be self-aware. Be kind to yourself. Self-compassion. Cultivate in yourself what you want to experience from others, because we can't experience from others from outside that which we can't experience in ourselves. So think about yourself first. Think about what are you going to do for yourself. There's that saying, our body is a temple, our mind is a temple. Think about that world that you want to experience, build that in yourself. And be aware, everyone's thinking is different. The saying goes, the map is not the territory. Our map, our internal representation of the world that we've built up through our experiences through life, that's the filter by which we experience everything. That's what we might consider to be the truth. But the thing is, everyone else is experiencing the world through their internal representations. And so it helps to be mindful of that. What we see, what we experience, what we consider to be true is not what each other person considers to be true. And be accepting of that and curious of that. It's an opportunity to learn about other people and make deeper connections, and live life with curiosity and interest and fun. It's about fun. Have fun.
Love it. That's a great way to end it. Thanks, Sridhar.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Focus and Chill podcast. To listen to other episodes, jump onto podcast.focusbear.io. If you'd like to be a guest on the show or you know someone who'd be a good fit, email us at team@focusbear.io. Otherwise, stay focused, stay chilled, and peace out.